Welcome to Nerds and Hip Hop. Back after a long hiatus, the podcast Nerds and Hip Hop is about the intersection of hip hop and nerd life. Ninja Gaiden, Cool Mo D, Sailor Pluto, Sailor Uranus, Del Funky the Homo Sapien, Kunihiko Ikuhara are all fair game. If you know any of these names, welcome.
There are four main parts. We first review our weeks in nerdom and hip-hopdom. Then we explore our theme through our hip-hop and nerd influences. At the end, we ask ourselves a question and open up to answer your questions.
Welcome officially. And I guess I'll start us off this week with my week in nerddom. I've been watching Shiro Bako, which is a anime series about a group of girls who were in charge of an anime club in terms of making an anime, and then they all kind of graduate on getting involved in the industry. And the main character we focus on is kind of an assistant to the production manager trying to get involved, and it's kind of a fusion of let's learn everything about like anime lexicon and kind of see whoever's involved and the creative process, and also being this kind of young adult adjusting to like a full intensive work life. And it's kind of neat. In fact, as I said, part of the reason why I mentioned this is like it's a thing when you imagine being involved with something you love as opposed to actually being involved with it. There's kind of this discrepancy of ideas, and the beginning of the show looks like it's going to be this like slice of life anime high school girl thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not going to work out. And then the tonal switch happens. You see her rushing to do something for her job, trying to get this deadline done because one of her coworkers messed up, and you're like, oh, that's real life. I remember wanting to punch coworkers before too. And as I said, it's one of those things like there's a moment where the director changes his mind in the middle of a voice recording session about the meaning of a character, and then they have this like final scene where they're all like arguing about who the character really is. And mind you, they're talking about a kitty magical girl anime that looks more like Pretty Cure as opposed to something like Sailor Moon. And you're like, why do you care about these characters? So you realize they create nuances and so forth. And there's this final scene where you're like, oh, I get it now. I get why, even for something as superficial that could look like that, the creative process is still there, and you still see the life issues with that. And actually, it just made me think of like you, who's actually into your everyday life, and you're telling me about how tired you get sometimes working, sometimes getting burned out.
Definitely a lot of writing, definitely a lot of burning out, trying to get assignments done, working to deadlines. But I do enjoy because a lot of the stuff I get to write about is some really cool stuff. Like I wrote about a manga that both Marcus and I read called Tephlon Funk.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Which has been it's really exciting. Just basically about this kid, this girl in the Bronx who um, kind of gets into some trouble and meets this guy who is kind of promising to change her life, and she's not sure like what's going on, where's he from. I think he saves her at some point. Um, yeah, so definitely carrying that.
You did get to write about that. So I don't know if you caught. Did you catch the kind of like mind playing tricks with me reference at the beginning, where one of the panels says like I've been having the same nightmares, waking up in cold sweats, and all I see is a dark figure. Like when I read that, it's not verbatim lyrically, but it's like that sounds like the mind playing tricks of me a little bit.
I think that is it may be verbatim. It was once you said it like that, I was like, oh wait, yeah.
I don't think they said dark figure. Like that's
It's
what
funny though how that translated on page really well.
it did. And what was interesting about that was the fact that it starts off with like I hate where I am. New York. It's kind of the New York is killing me vibe of like Nas and Gil Scott Heron described.
Right.
But it was neat. It's like she didn't get in trouble yet. Like everything that we're expecting is like, what is really happening here? It's really what? It's an 18-page comic.
Maybe less than that, but yeah, maybe I guess about 18.
And,
14.
and essentially, the main character, as you said, is going to try to get involved with selling drugs, I think is what it's supposed to be. Like she's trying to do that to get out of a
Right.
hood.
Yeah, it seems like he's definitely gonna work as kind of like a savior figure to help her out of this environment that she's in. And as you said, like Nas is Illmatic and Gil Scott Heron, that kind of like hard, gritty New York City, trapped in a neighborhood. So it should be interesting. It's already gearing up. I'm excited for the second issue to come out.
I am. Can I just say it's weird? We just described like dark, gritty New York, but yet one of her alternate album covers, like they did like their own variant cover series, and one of them is J Lo. Like that, I get why because one of the main characters from the Bronx, but that doesn't fit in my head in grimy New York.
It does it. It's funny because especially like with J Lo now, what she's become, like she's the furthest thing from like grimy New York, but she definitely did come from the Bronx. But now I think about it, actually, I think I don't. Is the series? I can't remember if the series is set in the Bronx or in Queens. It might be Queens actually. I think I got that wrong. It is Queens. Yeah, Queensbridge.
One of the main characters is from the Bronx. I think it's the Dominican girl.
I think you're right. Yeah. And J Lo isn't even Dominican.
Well, I know that, but I'm wondering if that was part of kind of getting into the Latino heritage component as well.
Oh, probably. Yeah, and the main girl is actually half. Is she half Latino? I can't remember. She might be half white. Either way.
Sure. I loved seeing the variant hip hop covers though.
Yeah, they were cool. They were cool. They had Big L and a few other ones. Yeah, all from the different boroughs of New York, which was cool, like representing each. Even though it's definitely like, I mean, obviously New York hip hop inspired, but definitely inspired mostly by Nas and Queens.
I'm excited to see what happens for that.
Me too. Me too. But another thing we did in common this week, were at some point in our lives.
Yeah, not this week, but we did it together. We did
it together. Is that a song? What's a song?
We finally saw Little Witch Academia.
It's so cute.
It's adorable. It is, but it's not just adorable because it's a short like 20-minute thing, 25 minutes on Netflix. It's an OVA done by Trigger, and I don't know. I think Trigger did this the same year they did Kill la Kill. Is it Trigger or Gainax? I always get it wrong.
I think it was Trigger.
I think it's Trigger too. If I'm wrong, you can just correct me in the comments. But I'm going to go with Trigger. Either way, it's the same studio that did Kill la Kill.
That's all we need to know. Yeah, it's definitely cute and fierce. I think it's the two words I would describe it as.
Yeah, like I wish this was a full series.
Yeah, it was amazing. It kind of reminded me of Rune Explorers. If anyone's ever seen that, it's kind of like a 90s anime. It had a very 90s anime feel, too.
You think so?
A little bit. Like, it could be modern, but it also had, like, a very, like, as far as the storytelling went, I guess maybe because it was short. It was, like, a short series. Like, short. It kind of gave me that feel of, like, 90s anime when they had, like, a set amount of episodes and kind of just went. I think I had like those 6 VHS tapes of Rune Explorers. No, two VHS tapes. Two VHS tapes. 6 for another one that I have. I can't remember what it's called.
Right. Yeah. I think some of my favorite, like just visually watching it, and I was kind of seeing because it's pretty much about this girl who goes to this kind of witch parade thing at the beginning of the series. I think it's like a witch entertainer, but she's not. Apparently, she goes to a witch school, and she finds out that the entertainer is just more of an entertainer than an official magical witch in the traditional sense. And she's just excited to be there and learn all these things, and she wants to do like this super spectacular stuff. And she's around people who are like, "What are you talking about? That's not what witches do. That's not their daily lives."
It's not everyday witch life.
But it's neat that like the way that it ends is how it begins, kind of like that martial arts movie trope is like, oh, that legendary scene. and then it literally ends that way. But the visual component I loved was when when the kind of crazy scenario happens with, not to go too crazy, but there's a dragon that shows up and then they're trying to protect the school, and I was like, this is a neat animation trick where you have a head witch is trying to speak to everybody, and she turns her wand into a microphone. Like she creates a microphone from her wand. You're like, oh, that's neat. That's like that creativity that happened with like Green Lantern, where it's like, oh, let's figure out ways that they can use their magic to kind of actually help them daily. I was like, oh, like this feels like a world where it's not just magic exists. It's like magic is a part of their daily lives.
True. It kind of reminded me of a Revolutionary Girl Utena too, as far as like dealing with magical girl series in everyday lives.
So I know, but you've been watching that recently.
I have been watching that recently. I really like it so far. I only got about 10 episodes in, but it's a lot different from what I thought it was going to be about. I tried to go into series without um, reading the description because I like to just be coming completely fresh. So I thought it was about like two girls exploring the city. You know, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's completely wrong. I thought they were like exploring ruins and just like fighting bad guys. But yeah, it's set in high school. Completely different. um,
Traditional high school idol.
Wait, what?
When we say high school, when we're talking about anime, everyone kind of has this big
Oh,
image in their head of what is like, oh, it's going to be one of those. Like, nope, it's not one of those either.
yeah, that's true. It's not a traditional high school. If anyone's watched well, maybe it's not like Boys Over Flowers, but it reminds me of Boys Over Flowers a little bit too, the Korean drama, just because it's a very rich high school, I guess, with like four guys who kind of like run crap. um, but I think the thing that was the cool thing about it is that it has a black girl. But the annoying thing about it is that she's kind of put at the center. Well, she's kind of abused a bit, which gets annoying. But the cool thing is that they kind of all fight for her as also. There are four guys that I mentioned earlier, as well as the main girl, Utena. They all kind of want to possess her. Besides Utena, for like their own reasons.
Right.
And Utena kind of like fights for her, so she's not owned by anyone, but it's still very kind of weird. But
I don't know how far you've gone. I'm trying to remember what happens around episode 10. Have you kind of gotten the subtlety about her? You start. Have you? There's a point where I think she and Utena have to like dorm together. Has that happened yet?
yeah, that's happened.
Did you not get the sense a little bit that when they were dorming together, that because of how suspicious she was during those times, that you don't think that it's not that. eh, do you think that she wants to be owned? Because that vibe kind of comes off a little bit during that part of the series.
Um, I think she doesn't know anything else. I feel like it's like this is what it is, and this is not that she wants to be it, but she doesn't see much wrong with it as long as she has like a person who's cares about her, who's the one taking care of her, or who's in possession of her at the time.
It's interesting. That theme goes throughout the series, and I think you're gonna see more moments where I think you would think that she wants this more so than she's stuck in it.
Right.
But there are other moments where you think that she's more stuck in it. So I'm curious to see how once the series is set and over, because I don't think you've hit any of the major twists, how you feel about that dynamic. Because I never read into the racial component much of that, to be honest. But now that you say it explicitly, I'm like, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool that she has like this like immense power within her. Um, but yeah, but I won't give away any spoilers after that. I say with that note, we can move on.
That
To perfect segue to our week in hip hop.
Yes. Yesterday? Yes, yesterday. You know, DJ Premier collaborated on a song called Places I've Been or Places I Want to Go.
Places to go.
Places to Go. Love it. Like, and I feel like I'm going to be burned again. I think 4 years ago, Yuna released her debut album. It's either 2011 or 2012. And in the United States. And she did a song with Pharrell. Love that song. It is this kind of like funky, soulful vibe. And her voice is amazing. Like it's really laid back. And I bought the album and I didn't love the album. I was disappointed. I'm afraid this is gonna happen again.
Like Kingdom Hearts. Oh no, it wasn't. Oh, what's her name? Yutada Hikaru.
Well, that's not, yes. It feels like it wasn't as bad as Utada Hikaru because that album just felt really off in comparison to what we heard. Yuna's album was just like you didn't give me a good sense of what the album was really gonna be like. But it wasn't like and it wasn't like I heard it and I was like, this is so not within what she could do. It's just like, oh, that's what I'm getting myself into. It was that it's Utada Hikaru. I felt like hoodwinked, and it's like this is not who you are, which I was wrong, but it's like that's how I felt with you, and I was like, oh, okay, so it's not all like this, and that's what I'm feeling with this DJ Premier track. Is like, have you heard the Christina Aguilera DJ Premier songs off of I think it's Back to Black? No, that's not the album. I forgot the name of the album that he worked on with her.
No, I don't think so.
Cause that's the first thing that came to mind. I was like, and it's really soulful, really nice. Mm-hmm. So that's what it came to my mind. I was like, I wonder if the entire album's gonna sound like this.
Probably not.
That's what my gut is telling me. But it's a great song. What did you think of that?
It is a great song. I really liked it. It's funny. I felt so familiar with Yuna when I heard her name, but when I looked up the song she's come out with, I realized I don't really know much of her music. But it was still really, I thought it was a surprising collaboration, but it worked out really well. Like, it's just a really smooth and, like, good song. Like, you're just, like, not regular, generic good song, but just, like, it's just good. How else to describe it? So I was pleasantly surprised. Like, I love her aesthetic. I think I'm gonna take the optimistic route and check out her album when it comes out.
You should. And I have a strange feeling you might enjoy her first album more than I did too. So I'll try to. Well, whenever you visit, you can listen to the CD because you're not going to be a horrible person.
It might be on Spotify.
Right, I forget that you're not that bad these days.
Whatever.
But we listened to stuff together too. That wasn't the only thing just going on in my week. We had mutual week stuff.
Right, yeah. We both listened to, well, you listened to it a while ago. I finally caught up to you with Church Clothes 3, Lecrae.
Yes.
Which was super, it was really good. It was a lot better, well, I don't want to say better than I thought it was going to be, but it was a different better than I thought it was going to be.
What do you mean by that?
I've heard Lecrae songs before, and I've liked them, but this was the first song where his songs on Church Clothes 3 were the first songs I listened to where I thought, these are songs I can, like, put on my phone and listen to, like, on an everyday basis. Other songs were more like, oh, I like that song, but it was I never thought about putting it into my rotation. These are the first songs I felt like I could do that with. And it like, transitioned smoothly into, like, my everyday listening.
Okay, I can see that. Mm-hmm. So, without getting too crazy into it, because I've been, like, the minute that he dropped this on Twitter, I was like, already? Okay, we're ready. Let's get into it. I enjoyed Church Clothes 1, but it took me a while to admit that to myself. Mm-hmm. Church Clothes 2 was okay. Anomaly was great. And there was a thing that was happening throughout those albums. I mean, I've heard other old Lecrae songs like Take Me Where He's Trying to Go Next. And what got to me that annoyed me a little bit is that on Anomaly, there's a couple of songs where he keeps on saying like it was happened on Church Clothes 1. It's like I rap for the soldier that lost his left leg, or I rap for these people, and it kind of got a little bit annoying because I'm like, okay, You say that you are rapping for them, but where are the stories for them, or or what are these stories for the people that that you claim that you rap for? And it's kind of one of my rap pet peeves is like I rap for these people, but it's like what is the songs for these people?
Right.
I always get a little bit annoyed with that sometimes. But an anomaly he started getting there. Welcome to America had that, and then on Church Close 3, Gangland, Freedom, Misconceptions 3. There's like those songs are emblematic of I rap for like I have a audience that I want to really get into. Gangland especially, that song is incredible.
Yeah. When I heard Gangland, I thought like at first I thought like this is really bold. Like I interviewed Speech from Arrested Development a few weeks ago, and he was saying how he doesn't really get into a lot of Christian hip hop because he feels that even though he's a Christian and he's a rapper, because he feels like a lot of it just doesn't like isn't revolutionary enough. It doesn't go there enough, and I almost heard what he was saying with that, and it's kind of like with you saying like they'll talk about they speak for something, but they don't actually like talk about the issue. Um, and that this when I heard Gangland, I was like, whoa, this song is like hitting it right, like it was like talking about racism and the Black Lives Matter, and then mixing it with Christianity. It was just super super bold and out there.
I don't. Did you get to see the 15-minute video?
No.
Okay, that's what sold me on even buying the project. There's a 15-minute video, and they have videos for Gangland, Freedom, It Is What It Is, and Misconceptions 3. Those are, and the Gangland part really, when you watch that video, you're like, wow, the context and for the on that song he talks about the history of the Crips in terms of what it was intended for, the systematic breakdown, how they rebuilt, like, and as I said, as you talk about, like, it is still kind of within a Black Christian framework. It's really.
So you're saying it's better than Beyonce's Formation?
I make no comments concerning comparisons between Beyonce and Lecrae.
I think we're in an interesting part because I haven't seen Lecrae's, and I'm pretty sure you haven't seen Beyonce, so we can't make a statement on this.
we can't make a statement on this. I will say though, the tiniest thing I will say about Beyonce's thing, I have not watched the video because I'm not really a Beyonce fan. Like that's just the reality of all of this. Yeah. Musically, I'm not that interested. However, I've seen video images and certain clips. Like the videographer was on like 10. Like I see clips, I'm like, that's just like amazing video idea. So I will hold my hands up and say that the videographer deserves like a 10, and if she's working with the videographer, she deserves a 10. Like that stuff was provocative.
She's done they've worked together a few times. She also did her thing for Pretty Hurts, which is also just like beautiful aesthetically. If you want to check out something, you might like that song too.
I'll probably do that then. I guess it's their usual collaborators together then.
Yeah. But you mentioned Misconceptions 3 though, and I just had to give a shout out to Jackie Hill Perry because that verse was amazing.
Everybody on that song had like a great verse because to me, Jake Givens had the verse on that.
True. I guess I always have a soft spot for women when in hip hop, and I'm just like, awesome woman in hip hop. I need to like find out everything about you now.
You need to. Her album's free. So you can...
Ooh, I like free.
Yes, Humble Beast does that. So if you want to buy it, you can buy it. But if you want it for free, you can do it for free.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah.
I will link that to you. She's pretty dope.
Yeah. Speaking of gospel albums or semi-gospel albums.
Really?
I mean, if Kanye said it, it has to be facts, right? Facts, hashtag, get it?
Is this what we're doing? Okay, so talk about how he's the Apostle Paul. So
God.
I'll go with this, right?
Well, A, he is not the Apostle Paul. The life of Pablo is what we're talking about. If anyone's been under a rock for the past 2 weeks and hasn't heard anything Kanye related,
I want to be under that rock with you.
tell us where the rock is. Um, the first time I heard it when it was streaming at Tidal, I didn't like it. I caught it at Famous when, like, I literally started watching when Famous was playing it, and then I heard the line with Taylor Swift, and I was just like, is this what the whole album is gonna be? Just vulgar Kanye-isms, weird auto-tune usage. But on second listen, I liked it a lot better, and it just, like, I started realizing just, like, the less I took it seriously, and the more I just saw it as more of a fun album, um, it became a lot better to me. It's super interesting.
Isn't that weird though? Like, he's known for albums that you take seriously.
He is. And I think he wants us to take this one seriously too, I'm guessing. But I find it more enjoyable when I don't take it seriously. When I just feel like he's more spewing off like BS almost.
I mean, let me make this very disclaimer. I have not caved to get a Tidal account yet, so I'm only trusting the person who reviewed the album because I haven't caved yet. I'll probably cave by next week, but I'm not caved yet.
It's a free trial.
Yeah, but they'll have my information forever.
They don't have your credit card information.
I know, but they'll know that I actually signed up for them. Like, that's bad enough.
Poor Jay-Z. Poor Jay-Z. But yeah, I do think see it as more as like a confessional as well, just kind of like a stream of consciousness, almost just like saying everything that's on your mind, which is Kanye's kind of known for. But yeah, just in that regard, like the things you wouldn't say out loud, he's kind of just like saying them. And it's not even so that he's saying it seriously, it's more like he's just like, this was in my mind, like this is something I was thinking, like maybe that might happen. But of course, like his get more monumental responses because they're offensive and Kanye.
I have two questions for you then, with that in mind.
Sure.
One, I think you mentioned this into your review, cough cough boombox cough cough.
Boombox.com.
You did say it felt like an amalgamation of all his sounds thus far. Was that it?
I did, yeah, I did. Cause he does have like the soulful, gospel-y samples, from like his first like 3 trilogies, as well as like he has like auto-tune in there, so it's kind of like 808s and Heartbreak. And then it's also been like rolled out kind of this grand scheme, so it reminded me of my Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy in that respect. And then it kind of has his like rhyme style of Yeezus. So it's definitely like all Kanye's in there, which is interesting because I feel like his career is kind of, after graduation, has kind of been a comparison between like his earlier work and his later work, where people, old Kanye, new Kanye, and I feel like he kind of became aware of all of those things people say about him and like of like his career and how it's viewed, and kind of like took everything about that and put it into the life of Pablo.
I did hear a bunch of people start remixing of this to old Kanye, so I can see what you're saying with that.
Mm-hmm. I haven't heard those remixes. I gotta listen to that.
Illmind remixed it, and somebody else. I'll see who else did it. I want to say Ninth, but I'm not convinced.
Mm.
The other question I asked is that you said this to me. I didn't know if it came out of your review, but you kind of just felt like everybody else kind of was more consistent to the Kanye album than Kanye in terms of like the highlights.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you'll hear about like Chance's verse on Ultralight Beams, or Vic Mensa's verse on Wolves, or Ty Dolla $ign, or Kendrick Lamar, but you don't really hear like, oh yeah, Kanye had that really cool verse. Like you just hear he said that line about Taylor Swift. You just hear something else he said in there. I forgot. There's another like jarring line. but you don't really hear like, oh yeah, Kanye's verse on that was like super dope. Other than like I missed the old Kanye.
And I guess 30 hours ish.
Yeah, 30 hours too. Yeah.
Shout out to Kareem Riggins for producing that, because
that's pretty dope.
I'm not gonna let that get me. But I have to say, you have 6 Mad Lib CDs and you only chose one song. That almost didn't make the album.
It's madness. It's madness. The crazy part is like he has so many different versions and different songs that you could have put on there, and it's an 18-song album. It's just, I don't know. It's interesting.
It's a mess.
It's a mess.
That's all I can say. I mean, did you hear? I think I sent you a link to songs that didn't make it to the album, like different versions. And then I heard All Day. What is Paul McCartney doing it all day?
I don't know. He did have credit on it before, because that was the time when they were doing like 4 or 5 seconds and all that stuff. But I don't know. I have no idea what Paul McCartney's doing with his life. I mean, I'm not mad at it, but it's just like, it's a mess. It's like none of what we got doesn't make sense. The fact that he's not going to put it on sale doesn't, like, nothing makes sense with this project. From an outsider in. I mean, you're in the industry, maybe this all makes sense to you. Maybe in Kanye's head it makes sense. I mean, it could be one of those things like a year from now, where it's like, oh wow, he was ahead of the curve. But we won't know until a year from now. Or 5 years from now, or 10 years from now. But I don't think we'll say that. I think we have a better chance of saying that Kanye's new video game is going to be as good as what's coming out now, right? True. That video game looked amazing. It's called Only One. Just super, like, ethereal. That's our word. Really pretty. It's about his mom making her way to the pearly gates of heaven. It's a beautiful concept. I'm kind of surprised, but not surprised. Kanye mentioned that he had trouble finding video game developers who would work with him. I thought it was a cool concept, and from seeing it, I mean, it obviously probably would just be an easy moneymaker just because it's Kanye and he already has the star power, and if it's done right, people are gonna want it. I'm not as surprised, because there are 3 major questions right now. We don't know what platform this is coming out on. We do not. We don't. I say this very carefully too. We don't know how much Kanye is going to charge for this game. That's also true. That's the, I want to say, outlier. Right. I don't think it's going to be ridiculous. Like, my gut tells me it's going to be a phone game. It's probably going to cost about $10. I was thinking phone game too. I mean, Kylie and what's her name have the game. It's, every time I sign into Google Play, they sell it, and I think it's like $16. Not spending $16 on that. But and that's kind of the final piece, is that if it's going to be a phone game, if it's not more of a traditional game in terms of like game mechanics or the developers, it's going to be harder even for people who are Kanye fans to want to spend money on a game. At least that's on their phone, as far as I know. Especially since they don't want to spend $20 on his album. But people would spend $20 on a Kanye album if it wasn't on Tidal. You think so? I'm sure. Well, no, I think Kanye... isn't it for sale too? Like through Tidal or through his website? I think, don't you still need to sign up for Tidal to download it? Oh, probably. Maybe that's it. Because that's what I thought. I mean, I probably would have bought it by now too. I mean... Yeah. I mean, have you never spent excess money on a double album before? I don't think so. I don't think I've spent more than... Well, excess has changed over the years. I feel like $15 might have been excess, like... Actually, you know what? I completely forgot about that, that soundtrack I bought the other day. It was for like $25 because I couldn't find it anywhere else. The Korean one, right? Yeah, well, yeah, Korean, Chinese, American. It's really like a classical album for a late autumn movie with a Korean actor, Chinese actress, set in Seattle. Which is what I think I'll be watching for next week, right? I hope so. It's an amazing movie.
That's the one that's on Vicky, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'll watch that for next week so you can hear some thoughts on that.
It's
And
the best movie ever, guys.
I don't know if that transitioned us well. Does that transition us well into the theme of the week?
I think so because it's very much about realistic relationships. That's the theme.
So this was originally a Valentine special, but certain people who shall not be named actually had to go out for Valentine's Day.
What? What?
But while other non-people could not go out for Valentine's Day, so this is
Okay.
the late Valentine special.
Whee!
And we wanted to think about what were like the most realistic relationships in both like hip hop and nerdom that we could think about. And I'll go first. Since I'm the Debbie Downer of us two.
I can be downer sometimes.
Yeah, but you went out, so you're not that down. And it wasn't the worst like we've described years prior.
Could have been.
Eh, did it?
No.
Okay. For it stands. So when I think of realistic relationships, I think it's kind of true that when you think realism, sometimes you do go negative sometimes. I think of 5 centimeters per second, and the key thing in that, the overarching story is young man and a girl kind of connect at they're both at the age of like fifth grade. She leaves town, and you kind of see him grow up and kind of go into different scenarios, and you can still that he's still trying to keep in contact with her, and is still thinking about the connection that they had growing up, even though other scenarios have happened in his life. And then at the end of the movie, one of the whole ending scene that like stands out to me is that you think they're gonna recross paths again because you expect it in these stuff. Like in a lot of like romantic stuff, you're like, oh, they're gonna get together. It's gonna be a nice, wonderful, beautiful life. And the end of this movie, and it's not really spoiling because I haven't gotten into any details, but essentially they don't. And you kind of feel that part of the movie is kind of encouraging him to move on from a memory of someone because you can tell that he's probably, because although they're in contact, this is before you have like different ways of keeping contact like Skype or whatever. You probably are in love with the memory than necessarily her. And it's a missed connection. The title of the movie is called 5 centimeters per second because they think the way that people grow apart from each other is the same speed at which like a cherry blossom falls, which is 5 centimeters per second.
Oh, that sounds adorable. I kind of want to watch it now, even though I'd probably be devastated by the end.
You should. It's great. But on a much lighter note, another great relationship in a great relationship in nerddom because the other one wasn't really a relationship that worked out. It's kind of between Marl and Chrono. I For those who have not played Chrono Trigger, the opening of Chrono Trigger is kind of infamous because it sets up a lot of things that go on in the game. But one of the key things that happens is that Chrono's a normal local boy, goes into the Millennial Fair. It is officially 1000 AD. He go he bumps into this girl because he's rushing, and she falls. He helps picks up the necklace, gives it to her, and they talk. And they spend time talking, and then after they go to see their Luca, who's kind of the inventor of the town, open up a portal for time travel, and then Marl, who's the girl, gets thrown in time. What happens when they get thrown in time is that she gets adopted. She gets thrown into, gets mistaked to be the queen, and she's kind of phasing in and out of that time period. And what you end up finding out is that she's actually the queen of your time period. And when they look at her, she looks like the queen from their time period because it's the same line. It's the same queen line. I was like, that's kind of cool. But the reason why that kind of comes to mind of like a cool relationship is like you can tell that after essentially she's kind of doing this queen paradox scenario. So she's about to phase out of time because they can't find a queen of that time period. after she gets saved, you can tell the main reason why she likes Chrono, because she was trying not to be recognized as a queen's daughter. Like she didn't want that, and essentially Chrono interacted with her as if she was a normal person. And you can tell that's kind of the key guiding thing throughout the relationship is that Chrono didn't put her on a kind of pedestal or whatever. He just treated her like her. So there's this whole saving thing and all that, but it's like ultimately at there's a scene in the game which I don't want to spoil because that's a lot of spoilers, and essentially dealing with, and you can see her like hugging Chronos so tightly because he was in danger at a point, and you can just tell like nobody else has really gotten to let her be her except for Chrono. I was like, that's a realistic portrayal because sometimes that's all that you want. You don't want to be perceived as a superior person in a relationship or anything else.
So mines are both down. Thought we were doing down stuff. So obviously I'm a huge Sailor Moon fan. So when I think of realistic relationships, I mean Sailor Moon and Serena and Darien are probably the least realistic that most people would think. And I think for most part, I mean their entire background, her being an incarcerated princess from the moon, him being an reincarnated, um, not incarcerated, prince from Earth, and then like meeting each other again. But one thing I will say is in the end of, I want to say season 2, they break up, and it is the saddest thing in the world. I just remember like Darren basically broke up with her because he kept having these dreams that if they stayed together that they won't if something bad is going to happen to Serena, so he breaks up with her without telling her, and she just breaks down crying because it was around the same time that she was going to bring him to meet her parents, and she's just like bawling out crying like, I guess saying like saying out loud to herself like, I guess you won't be my mom or whatever, and it's really heartbreaking, just a very realistic moment I think in a set in two characters that kind of live in this magical world with like all this crazy stuff. It was very just like it hit a nerve. Um, my other one that kind of pushed me to another one, which was a Korean drama, My Lovely Samsoon, where the main character Samsoon, she was dating a guy and then found out that he was cheating on her. Or he broke up with her and then he started dating another girl and she runs into him. Um, and because of like she runs into him later while he's on another date and decides, and she just like burst out crying. She's just like, why can't like love just be simple? And it was the perfect thing. She was just like, why can't it just be like you like a guy, he likes you back, and you just date, and then that's it. And it was a really like simple line, not to like say simple too much, but it held so much truth for me because it's like, yeah, why can't it just be that simple? Like, why is everything so like complicated and convoluted? And it's just like it was the perfect moment, perfect build up to that moment. And then when she said it, it was just like, yes, like I get that. Um, so yeah, that was crazy. It's such a good drama though. It's one of my favorites.
That's actually kind of neat, and I think it's neat because it sets up like some realistic stuff in hip hop. Because you ask why can't it be all that simple, and I think the first thing that comes to my mind in like realistic relationships in hip hop or is Fonte's verse on "Slow It Down." There's there's two lines in there that like stand out, and one of them is that shows why it can't ever really be that simple. Like it's like I want a girl when I want a girl, and when I don't want a girl, I want a girl who understands that. That's the minute I heard that line, I'm like, that is crazy, but I like it makes so much sense in terms of like how we sometimes want to be in a relationship, you want to commit, but there are times where it's like the actual relationship, you're like, I don't need this right now.
That kind of reminds me of the Merge trilogy, also, because you're just talking about I want a girl and I want a girl and when I don't want a girl, I don't want a girl. Because that's kind of like he has a song like Me and This John first, where he he falls in love with this girl and it's like going great, and then he kind of starts reverting back to like I want to say his old self, where he like starts cheating on her, starts stepping out on her, and it kind of like falls into another reason why it can't ever be simple, just because like we have natural tendencies and we have I don't know. Yeah, there's natural tendencies that kind of make things difficult.
Right. And almost, do you remember the common song "Faithful"?
Oh, faithful to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it also makes me think a little bit about that, although I'm not sure. I guess that's realistic too, but it just thought it was like I didn't expect for us to say realistic stuff had more stuff to do with faithfulness. I didn't expect that's where we were going. I don't necessarily think that's what Fontaine meant in that line, but that's actually, I guess, a point to consider. I mean, you did want to talk about Erica Badu a little bit. No, because when he says like I want, so when I want a girl, I want a girl. When I don't want a girl, I want a girl that understands that. So when I talk, when he says like I want a girl that does that, when I don't want, I want a girl that understands that. It's that kind of like I want to step away from the relationship, but not really. It's not that I just want to step away from the relationship entirely. It's like I need a space for me, and taking it real slow, straightforward. And I was like, I want a girl to be with me that can understand I need. There are times where I don't want to be about the relationship, but not because I want to be unfaithful, but just like I don't want to deal with the relationship right now. Like I don't want to deal with you right now. That kind of thing.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny we are talking about faithfulness a lot. I'm starting to realize because it's also like Hello, Erica Badu and Eric Andre 3000, where his verse basically starts exploring the idea of like giving your girl your cell phone. Like there's like this new I think world that's opened up ever since like cell phones became popular, because it's like, can you leave your phone around unlocked around your girlfriend, or your boyfriend, and that kind of like trust element. And this is basically his first line is like, okay, challenge, leave your phone unlocked and right side up, walk out the room without throwing your girl off balance. And it's like, it's either on or off, ain't no in between when it's valid. And I just thought like I don't know, it was a dope line. And I just thought like it kind of captured like this new age modern thing that we have about our phones, and kind of like keeping them private or keeping them as like another space of ours that we don't want to share with others, or to hide things that, if someone's being unfaithful.
Do you, for you personally, do you think your phone is kind of this thing that's off limits?
I don't, but I do feel a sense of like mine to it. I wouldn't like if I left the room and like someone was going through my phone without me like doing that. But like if they just like, wanted to see it, or like if I'm in the room, or if they ask, I'm like, yeah, sure, like here.
Okay.
But yeah. So it's definitely I thought it was a cool verse, cool line. Did you have anything else? Anything you thought of?
Not anything else in addition to that. I think Carmen was the closest thing that jumped on my mind. Yeah. Fit better.
Milo?
I was going to talk about Milo. There's a song that he has called Besos, and I think it's like an expression of sentimentality, or exploration of sentimentality. And that taps into being more, I want to say awkward, but it's kind of like slightly in awe, but not like grand awe, but all the small things, and being kind of awkwardly happy about it. Like you're happy to be in the presence of this person, and there's kind of this insecurity that you're getting over with, and you get to share with them. Like those details are kind of expressed in the song and the video, and I appreciate that. Like, there's that kind of like when you get into a relationship, you have insecurities that you're sharing, and you kind of get happy to share those things, which is a weird sentence to say, but it kind of builds that. It builds the relationship because I guess there's a certain level of trust. I guess we go back to that word.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave it on one happy note. I mean, you have Lauren Hill's line, which I think is just beautiful to note. He's like, "Loving you is like a song I replay every 3 minutes and 30 seconds of every day." It's the most beautiful line. One of the most beautiful lines ever.
Very much so.
Yeah. Okay. So, anywho, another great segue.
Yes, on a happier note,
We are heading into
we
our
have the question.
what? So our what question this week is who was or what was or who was your first crush in an animated series? Or an animated.
Right. Animated thing. We'll just do that since we both grew up watching stuff like that. The answer is Sakura from Street Fighter Alpha 2. I remember when we played that in like '96, my brother's house, Street Fighter Alpha 2, and it was cool to see a younger character in general. Like when I would have been like 6, was like everyone else is in like 20s, 30s in Street Fighter, and she was in high school, and you saw her. She had a crush on Ryu, and I kind of had a mini crush on her. Watch like she was kind of cute. Like yeah, so yeah, that so it's different now that I'm older, so it's like not the same. I still feel an attachment to the character, but yeah, when you're growing up, that was the character. I could do a Sailor Moon reference, but I'm gonna leave that for you.
I always have a Sailor Moon reference. Mine, of course, was Darien or Mamoru, whatever you're watching. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I always wanted to be Sailor Moon. I wish I was Sailor Moon at some points. Um, and Darien just seemed like the perfect candidate. Um, he's an attractive animated character. I'm not afraid to say it. His green jackets and turtlenecks.
Oh, his style is on 10. The lilac suit.
The lilacs, yup. Tuxedo, on point. With the hat.
Question: do you think you ever dated anyone that reminded you of Darien?
You don't know. I haven't. I don't think so. Which is interesting, because, yeah, you'd think, like, your, like, character that you like, you would find, like, those qualities in a person. But I can't think of anyone that reminds me of Darien. Um, yeah, no. What about you? How about Sakura? Sakura.
Not off the top of my head, not at all. And neither for Sailor Mercury, who was my runner-up choice.
Well, there you have it. Both of our love lives.
Yes, both of our love lives without anyone like our animated first crushes.
Yep. Oh, well.
You guys should answer too. We would love to hear animated. You're like, if you watched anime or played like Japanese video games, like what were the characters that when you were like young, 8, 9, that you kind of like had a tiny crush on? We want to hear that. And how would they find that out? How would they do that, Sailor Scout?
Well, there are a few different ways you can do that. You can, well, comment if you want to comment. You can get into our Twitter chats with Ask NOHH, or no, just NOHH. Or if you want to ask us a question, you can do Ask NOHH. or you can email us at nerdsonhiphop@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Twitter at Miss Old School or at The Wolves Den 25.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do Twitter or Instagram, whichever you prefer.
Oh, true. Same name. Same name. At Miss Old School, at the Wolves Dem 25. Either
And
way.
I think that's it.
That is it. Thanks for listening to Nerds on Hip Hop. Once again, I'm Victoria, aka Sailor Scouts. And you can catch me at Miss Old School, MISSOLDSKOOL.
She can't spell.
Bet.
And I'm Wolves Den at Wolves Den 25. Sayonara, son.
Deuces.